Well, I'm honored tonight to introduce Dr. Bibiana MacLeod. And if you ask me what comes to mind when I think of Dr. Bibiana MacLeod, I think of she answered the unthinkable question. Well, what is the unthinkable question, you ask? I'm so glad you asked, because I've been around missions for a long time, and if you've been around for any length of time, you've especially been involved in some of the worst poverty-stricken communities. You've at some point had to ask a question, whether or not what you're doing is really making an impact. When you see a child who's sick and you're able to help them get well, only to find out that several months later that child perhaps has died of some other disease, you begin to ask yourself if you're really helping or if you're just prolonging death. Well, Dr. Bibiana MacLeod answered the question with, "I will make a difference, and I'll do something about it." And so Dr. Bibiana MacLeod is from Argentina. She's married to Alexandra. She has 4 children, 2 of them still in school. They live in Atlantic Canada. She's worked in Haiti since 1989 as a medical missionary. She learned Che in 1993 and implemented it throughout rural Haiti, founding Medical Ambassadors Haiti, a sister organization of Medical Ambassadors International. There are close to 70 communities now doing Che in Haiti, with a local team of leaders that are consultants with multiple organizations in the country. Bibiana is a regional coordinator for South America and the Caribbean, 8 countries that implement Che through Che partnerships in the local churches and non-government organizations covering Cuba, Dominican Republic, Peru, Argentina, Venezuela, Brazil. Urban Che and Children Che, prenatal training, micro-enterprises, participatory agricultural development, including the use of moringa, and are all flourishing in different villages. Most recently, Bibiana has been involved in training Aboriginal groups in Bolivia, and with the Che strategy, with the possibility of expanding into new ethnic groups in Venezuela and Peru. These initiatives provoked her to rethink training and lessons to be adapted from Che curriculum, and she will be sharing what she has learned so far. She is making a difference to so many. Please help me in welcoming Dr. Bibiana MacLeod.
Buenas noches, ¿cómo están? I will continue in English, don't worry. It's a pleasure to be here, and I am representing a bunch of nice people in my field that are really focused on Che. So I come to you more as a witness than anything else. I assume, I would like to have the first slide, please. I assume that I have been invited to this platform because I had the privilege of seeing many communities being transformed, and I want to show you in my observations what are the things that repeat themselves as common factors that may help you when you are thinking of community transformation and how to be the facilitator of community transformation. I will say that confessing my incapacity to produce change is the first step. And this has to do with the need of prayer. Our organization is very serious about prayer, and we do intentionally look for opportunities to pass that on into the field. So one of the things that we do is we have a prayer guide. Our people in the field write down 3 praises and 3 prayer requests during the last part of the year. They put together a guide. That guide is translated into different languages, and in the month of January, we set up a day that we do fast and prayer for each other around the world. That's just one thing that kind of set the pace for the rest of the year. But also, we motivate people to continue to pray in their offices or in their groups. And I want to tell you that the most dramatic changes that I have seen in community transformation was when people in the community decided to pray and let God in. Some of them are the gatekeepers of the community, that person of peace that they were talking about, and gather neighbors or other believers in the neighborhood and say, listen, let's start praying at 6 in the morning every day for weeks, and then things start to happen. That's why, to me, prayer is important, because transformation starts with God, not with us. So if you, thank you, total dependence of God. If you remember, no, please, the previous one, I didn't change yet. I wanted to remind you of this verse because it says, I planted the seed, Apollos watered it, but God has been making it grow. So neither the one who plants nor the one who waters is anything, but only God who makes things grow. The one who plants and the one who waters have one purpose, and they will each be rewarded according to their own labor. For we are co-workers in God's service. You are God's field, God's building. We have to be clear that it starts with God. Transformation starts with Him, not with you. So, one last thing I want to say about this first key element is that a strategy that has not been bathed in desperate prayer is just a set of dead tools. If we want permanent change, we have to believe and act upon the conviction that it is Him who will initiate, maintain, produce fruit, and allow us to use the tools appropriately for Him to get all the credit for the outcome. So I'm going to take you to the mountains of Haiti, and you are going to meet some people. But before I take you there, I want to tell you a little bit of my story. 1993 was the year. You heard that I was a doctor working in Haiti since 4 years before. I had learned the Haitian language, and I was working at a clinic. But I had those questions that Larry was talking about, mostly related to foreign help, the role of the locals in transformation, and the desire to see long-term results. And then I was invited to translate for 3 Haitians that worked for medical ambassadors in a different role in remote clinics, to translate for them in the Dominican Republic. They were going to have a training of trainers there, and they needed a Spanish and Creole speaker. And as I was sitting there and I heard what they were saying, I realized that this is what God was calling me to do. And I really took it upon myself that this is what I'm going to be doing the rest of my life, is community health evangelism. So I was, back in those days, an all-or-nothing type of person. I don't know if you are like that, but it was the only thing that was going to save the world was Che. And I was very, very focused on that. Today I realize that God uses all kinds of other things to transform communities. But I was called to do Che. And I was called to go step by step in the process that I learned back in those days. Now, Che has evolved. There are many things that have been added, edited, redone for the urban setting. But it's true that those key principles that were taught to us in those days are the same today. And my predecessors have, and now, yes, please show the next slide, have come up with the idea of a water tower, and they said, well, there are 4 columns. There are towers, water towers can be in different shapes, but there are 4 legs, then they added 6, and there were 8, but there were 4 legs that were like the support of any type of Che program. My mentor back then was Dr. Hugo Gomez, who is here somewhere, and he's spending time here at the conference and had a workshop today. And he said, there is no one single community that will look like another one doing Che. And I said, oh, how in the world are we going to measure where are we at if Che doesn't look alike from one community to the next? And one of the things was that there were things that need to be in place in order for it to happen. So after saying that, I want to show you the next picture and talk a little bit about, we talk about prayer, and that was a key element. There I was with a vision, and now I needed to find a champion. one of the elements of the water tower, they say, is community ownership. Well, I tell you that community ownership is very painful, and it's a long process, and it's slow, and sometimes you think that you have found the right person, and then it doesn't happen that way, and then you have to wait until somebody else shows up that catches the vision. So community ownership starts with one person, the right person. And for me, this was José Saint-Just. José lived in the mountains of Montbécrochy and came to one of our trainings. And I remember Hugo saying, you watch for that guy because I think that he's getting it. And it took a few months. He learned what he needed to learn in TOT. And he went back to his community and started to spend time, talk about Che with his leaders. He knew where the key people were. And he did a survey that we teach to do to see which community is in good condition to receive Che. And people embraced it. And he kept at it for months, entering the community, talking about it. So I would say that this is another key element, the presence of a champion that will reflect this transition from my vision to their vision. And this idea of us trying to explain to them that we are not coming to run the show, that they will do it in their own time once they learn how to. And that transition is sometimes months, sometimes years. So, as the second key, and if you can pass the next slide, then José found people in the community that will start doing things and coming with ideas, and this was Madame Gilma. Madame Gilma lived in another village, so she started to produce disciples, and José started to disciple her, and she was teaching us things that she was learning in her community from other partners. But Madame Gilma attended one of our trainings where we were teaching how to identify, how to do your breast examination, and she found out that she had a tumor, and she came to us and she said, listen, I think that I have something. We referred her to a place to do a surgery, and a series of other circumstances made it happen that she died. But in her community, she had already started training somebody else. And if you show the next slide, please. That was Chippy Chippy. We call her Chippy Chippy because she taught us to dance. That's a lady with a white t-shirt. This idea of discipleship starts from the very beginning. José had taught Madame Gilma and others. She has taught somebody else. And there is the third key element, that is multiplication. It has to be there from the very beginning, this idea of discipleship. So if you want to show the next one. We have a Bible verse to explain multiplication, and it's 2 Timothy 2:2, right? And the things you have heard me say in the presence of many witnesses, entrust to reliable people who will also be qualified to teach others. If you can pass the next one, please. So Agnes is not alone. There is a senior trainers team in Haiti. They're those that really run the consultation and training other people. But each of them are doing different things. And I will ask you to pass the next 5 slides slowly, but as I talk, so I don't have to say next all the time. There are many things that are happening in Haiti. The teaching, the next slide, please. Yeah. The things that are happening in Haiti are teachings of different things that they thought it was necessary to learn there. Can you pass the next ones, please? So what happens is that they are learning, children and grown-ups. Can you pass, please, the next ones? Things about agriculture, like moringa, that is right now one of the things that they are trying to produce and dry and have it going on. The internal savings, that is something that they talked, the people from Chalmers. Family gardens. Stop there, please. So the integration happens at different levels. First of all, yes, we do spiritual lessons and we do physical lessons. We do storytelling and we do home Bible studies. And all these things are happening together. And sometimes you have to be very intentional because some of your trainers like to do one topic and they prefer that than another. And so by asking questions and going once in a while to say, okay, what's going on in this area or in this area, they realize, oh, we have to focus more maybe on this part. So the integration is it's like a dance, I will say, between the different interests of the community and how they put it together. But I don't want to talk only about integration of physical and spiritual, but there is also the integration of other people that come to the community with their gifts, the integration of the disabled or the people that are not so likable in the community, of leaders from other countries that come and teach something that the local team is not so strong about, and then the local team goes and teaches some. So there is more in integration than just the physical and spiritual, but it's to have a global idea of what God is doing. So that will be the fourth key. The fifth key is development. We say development, we used to say instead of relief. So people thought that for medical ambassadors, relief was a bad word. And we had the wrong impression on people that we were against relief. And relief can be very beneficial when it's done appropriately in a moment of crisis or in an acute problem like the earthquake. In the area of development, we try people to get things done by themselves. And because the note of this conference, we will not talk much about this. But I just wanted to make the note that it's not that we are against relief. It's that we are against relief improperly done. So if you can show the next ones. I went to this village, La Guamit, where Madame Gilman and Chippy Chippy are from, and they wanted to show us what they have taught. So they had this show put up. And I think, I didn't say next slide, if you can slow down. Can you go back? Thank you. The stories that they are telling of what they have learned through drama and through things that incorporate the children of the community with the grown-ups show that the transformation is really happening in the villages. And you saw one picture before of two children dancing. They were doing a drama on nutrition, but they were doing it with so much fun. They really enjoy being there. And this lady was having a baby, and the only doll that they could find in the community was this size. And so she came, and she was pregnant, and the Che was telling her what to do with her contractions and how to breathe. And the whole village was there watching. It was a classroom in the school. And it was just to show us what they have learned. And I felt that really the transfer had already happened. Now, yes, if you can show the next slide, thank you. Can you show the next slide? The sixth key, and we are very intentional in doing participatory teaching. All our lessons are set up in a way that people come up with their own reflection to contribute to the lesson. And this is also one element that we consider important. Can you pass the next one? And this is a last key element. And when I went to Haiti, I didn't know what the price I was going to pay by getting involved in community development. In my case, it was to just leave behind everything that I had learned in Argentina. Like the skills that I had learned are useful in some sense, but to learn a new set of things that were what the community really needed. And how much of myself was there to invest? And I will say that I was talking with Stan, and I was saying, it's not that I do Che, I am Che. Che is the way I think. I live in Canada, and I cannot be in my neighborhood without thinking, how can we apply what we have learned in the place where we live? And some of you are learning Che here to apply it overseas. And my question to you is, how much of yourself are you ready to give for this to happen? Because this is not one thing that you do 1 week a year. This is a way of thinking. How are you going to transform a community if you are not part of that transformation? And you have to become vulnerable to that relationship that is built with the people that you are working with, being overseas or being here. So the price is very high. And it's not easy, and not every community responds the same. I've been living in my village in Canada for the last 8 years, and I was telling Stan, I'm so frustrated that I do things here and here, but they are not coming together yet. So not every community will respond at the same speed. If you are being called to do Che, the only thing that sustains you is that the assurance that God is calling you, and that you are going to give your all, and that you are going to be hurt and being vulnerable, but you are responding to the call. So I want to do a summary to review what we have said. If you show the next slide, thank you. We say that transformation starts with God. That's why we pray, and we are very intentional. We make a plan on how to put prayer as our first priority. It has to start with community ownership that starts with one person. It has to have multiplication from the very beginning. Remember in 2 Timothy 2:2. Integration, not only of the physical and spiritual, but of the whole aspect of having people coming and being part of the process. Development, more than relief. Participatory learning, and your personal investment. What is good for the field is good for your family, your church, and your neighborhood. I want to finish with José's comment. We had a group coming to visit us to measure what we have done to see if they were going to contribute with our ministry. And they looked in the community and they didn't see nothing that really impressed them. They were North Americans. And they left a little bit frustrated. And we were frustrated too, I have to tell you the truth, because I didn't know what they expected to see, like brick buildings or paved roads. I really didn't know. So Jose said, the only person that can tell if we are changing or being transformed is the one that saw us before and see us now. If you have not seen us the way we were a few years before they came, they will not see nothing because they didn't know us. And I learned a big lesson from Jose. I learned many things from Jose, but this is my way of measuring. It's just getting to know the person and learn their story. And when you hear their stories, then you know if they have been transformed. Thank you very much for listening.